top 5 close encounters of the sixth kind. Number 5. B-25 bomber carrying UFO debris crashes. On August 1, 1947, a B-25 Mitchell bomber crashed in Washington state while allegedly carrying UFO debris, which is suspected of having caused the fire that brought the warbird down, killing both pilots. This was the first aircraft lost by the newly formed United States Air Force, so it was widely reported and thoroughly investigated. The story actually started 10 days earlier on July 21 with a UFO sighting on Maury Island, also in Washington, in which a man was injured and his dog killed by smoking debris falling from an apparently broken donut-shaped UFO, one of a flight of 6. This debris was what the downed B-25 was supposedly carrying. The deceased pilots of the B-25 were intelligence officers and part of the Air Force investigation into the Maury Island incident prior to the crash. This was a very strange time for the newly formed Air Force, since the Roswell incident was less than a month old, and the Kenneth Arnold sighting and report happened just 3 days after Maury Island. It was truly a busy and perplexing time for the boys in blue. Number 4. Valentich UFO Encounter and Disappearance. What has to be one of the most disturbing and mysterious disappearances of pilot and plane happened on October 21, 1978, when a young Australian pilot reported an encounter with an aggressive UFO. No trace was ever found of Frederick Valentich, the 20-year-old pilot who vanished into thin air after radioing in that he was in danger and being harassed by a UFO. Valentich was on a 200-kilometer flight in his single-engine Cessna 182 and was off the coast of Bass Strait when he contacted Melbourne Tower and reported that he was being harried by an unknown aircraft 300 meters above. He described the UFO as having 4 brilliant lights. Melbourne controllers said that his last taped words were, "It's not an aircraft," followed by ominous metallic scraping and crunching sounds and then nothing. The Australian Air Force said that they received 11 different UFO reports from people along the Bass Strait coast that Saturday night, but officials from the Australian Transport Department were skeptical. Some theorize that Valentich became disoriented when he saw his own lights reflecting off the surface of the water while flying upside down. Frederick's father, Guy Valentich, said, "The fact that they have found no trace of him really verifies the fact that UFOs could have been there." Number 3. The Mantell UFO Incident. On January 7, 1948, at around 1:30 p.m., Captain Thomas F. Mantell of the Kentucky Air National Guard was in his F-51 heading for Standiford Air Force Base in Kentucky along with 3 other Guard planes. At the same time, the Kentucky State Police were getting complaints from the public about a huge, round craft that they couldn't identify flying over the town of Mansville. It didn't take long before the reports included both the towns of Irvington and Owensboro, and the air traffic control tower at Godman Air Force Base had a clear visual on the craft. He described it as being large, round, with a whitish color, a red light on the bottom, and moving slowly to the south. Just over an hour later, Mantell's flight group was asked if they had enough fuel to investigate the unidentified craft. After communicating with the tower that they did, one of the pilots got permission to continue on his assigned course while Mantell and the other 2 got the heading from Godman Tower and took off in the direction of the unknown aircraft. Number 2. Falcon Lake Incident. At noon on May 20, 1967, Stephen Michalak, an industrial mechanic from Winnipeg, Canada, was prospecting in the Falcon Lake area of Manitoba when he spotted 2 strange aircraft. One was hovering in the air but bolted off at a terrific speed. The other UFO had landed and was only 50 meters away, so he started toward it, calling out and asking if they needed help fixing their crazy machine as he went. He went through all 6 languages that he was fluent in but never got a response. As he got closer, Michalak noticed a panel open on the side of the craft but was unable to see into it due to the bright yellowish-blue light it was emitting. He tried to contact the pilots again as he was coming up on the craft, but right then, the panel snapped shut, and he heard high-pitched whining as the craft started to spin counterclockwise. Then it began to lift off the ground, and for some unknown reason, Michalak reached out with his gloved left hand and grabbed it, and to his horror, his glove immediately caught fire. At that moment, the panel snapped back open, and a blast of intense heat knocked him backward onto the ground, where he had to roll around while tearing off his burning shirt. Half naked, injured, and scared, Michalak gathered up all his things and luckily caught a bus home, where he went straight to the hospital. The Falcon Lake case was extensively investigated by Canadian authorities, the Condon Commission, several civilian UFO groups from the United States and Canada, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and the Canadian Department of National Defence, but it remains unsolved. Number 1. Lady, the first animal mutilation. On September 7, 1967, Snippy the horse, real name was Lady, a 3-year-old Appaloosa mare, failed to come back to her pasture for her usual morning drink on the Harry King Ranch, 32 kilometers northeast of Alamosa, Colorado. 2 days later, her mangled body was found in the pasture. Parts of the animal had been cleanly cut in a surgical manner, and no tracks of any kind were found near the body. However, there were some strange markings discovered at the crime scene. 6 indentations formed a circle 1 meter in diameter, which many people felt were the marks of the landing gear of some kind of craft. On examination of Lady, her heart and brain were found to be missing, and a strange, formaldehyde-like odor came from her carcass. Her owner, Nellie Lewis, and the ranch owner, Harry King, went to the site where the horse was found and noted both a peculiar odor like incense and a bush that looked as though an intense heat source had knocked it down from above. Nellie later discovered that the boots she wore to the site tested as radioactive, which explained why the piece of mane she picked up at the site had burned her hand. Nellie Lewis contacted the United States Forest Service, and Ranger Dwayne Martin reported detecting higher than normal radioactivity up to a 2 city block radius around the body of Lady. This event is still unexplained and kicked off the animal mutilation phenomenon in the United States.